Make it
Truth Frequency Radio.
Heaven is like a roof to the material world and will serve as the floor of the new world. It is by nature shining and glorious and is the dwelling place of the invisible hosts. When God spread out this firmament, he brought up above it a third part of the waters, and above these is the heaven of light and of the luminaries. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio. I thank all of you for taking the time to join us this evening. As always, I have as co-host Kathy Dunson. Kathy, are you there, sister?
I am. Good evening, everybody.
All right, and we have a special guest this evening, Chris Queen of the YouTube channel Potter's Clay. Are you there, Chris?
I'm here, brother.
All right, excellent. Well, I believe this will be a very good show. We're going to talk about all things esoteric, but before we go on, if you would, Chris, share where people can go to find your material, to support your work, and to and also a little bit, about what you do and what your channel's about.
Okay. They can just YouTube search the Potter's Clay. It's all one word and no apostrophe. Other than that, I don't really have anything else for them to go to. That's where I've put everything at. I don't have a Facebook or anything like that, so I guess I'm not that interesting other than just the YouTube channel. But basically, I just post videos when the Holy Spirit puts something on my heart to make a video about.
Excellent. And how long have you been doing this?
About 2 years now.
Oh, right on. Yeah, so, okay, well, good. A good deal. Well, let's start with just a little bit about yourself and kind of how you came to the awareness of not only flat Earth, but other esoteric subjects, and when it was that the Most High kind of woke you up to what's going on in the world. If you would share
Sure.
that story with us.
Yeah, I got saved when I was a child, but I kind of backslid, and I was lukewarm for a lot of my teenage years and on into my 20s. But a couple of years ago, back in, I guess it was the very first February in 2015, my wife had some laparoscopic surgery, and when she did that, apparently they nicked her bowel or something while they were in there. So we ended up going back to the hospital that night, and then she was in the hospital for about a month after that. And she was touch and go at points and everything. So that was kind of a wake up call for me at that point. And I just hit my knees and I prayed, of course, for her, but I also prayed for my relationship with God to strengthen. And I prayed for wisdom and knowledge and for the Holy Spirit just to guide me into all truth. And he let it loose on me, needless to say, because I've learned pretty much all of those things you were talking about just in the last couple of years.
Wow. Yeah, so you got a flood of awakening happening, revelation after revelation after revelation, huh?
Oh, yeah. And I feel like it just keeps coming and still every day, I pray for the same things, just,
right.
Wisdom from the Lord and for him to show me what he wants to show me. And of course, discernment to know, when I'm being fooled.
Right. Yeah, most certainly. Yeah. And you're wise to pray that every day. That's a very good thing. Something that we should all follow in your example with regard to that. But walk us through you as far as the issues of your awakening. What was it that you were brought to revelation upon first, and kind of the scenario, the domino effect of what led to what and how it led you to flat Earth, or was that part of your initial awakening, and did that lead to other things? But if you would, to specify and all that.
Sure. Initially, what I guess woke me up to the deception portion of everything was looking into 9/11. That was probably one of the first things I looked into, and that was many years ago. I guess a few years after 9/11 happened. But looking into that, I saw there was a lot of deception. It wasn't right. I could just tell that the main story that they were going with just wasn't the right story. But it was a long time before I woke up to anything else. Like I said, most everything's been in the last couple of years. But let's see. The first I came to Flat Earth, that was probably one of the first things that got me, because I started out looking at aliens. And I was, watching alien shows and just trying to learn, is there life out there? That type of thing. And then I learned what aliens were. And once I figured out what aliens were, I started thinking about how the solar system really can't be what we heard it was. If it was infinite, of course there would be a possibility of alien life out there, but I knew what aliens were. So
you mean as far as demonic fallen angelic beings?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when I figured out they weren't aliens, but something else was happening, I just kept digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And, eventually I came to the conclusion that we're on an enclosed world and we're stationary.
Mm-hmm.
So,
with regard, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. With regard to 9/11, let's take it, kind of issue by issue. What was it that made you realize that the official story and what they were trying to get us to believe was just foolishness?
There was just so many things. The planes that had the wings go behind the buildings that were behind them. I mean, just so they clearly weren't there.
Right.
The way the buildings just fell at free fall speed, that right there is like the demolition. The planned demolition. How they blow the floors out and it just falls.
Yeah.
So I knew a plane couldn't have done that. That's impossible. And then the other buildings too. Building 7, Building 6,
Yes.
Building 6 looks like it was scooped out with a ladle or something. The whole middle of it's missing.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing was just ridiculous as far as, what the main story was.
Mm-hmm.
So
what about
I picked up on that one. And the missing plane.
What plane? Yeah.
And the no plane that was there. So,
right, exactly.
Yeah, the whole story just smelled.
Right. And then Flight 93, the hole in the ground.
The skid mark on the ground, yeah.
How the Earth just swallowed everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
I think
foolishness.
that's probably a lot of people's, first thing they wake up to, just because it was so obvious.
Right.
But
right.
there's so many people that are still just standing by that story. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's so very difficult for people to come to the realization that they have been fooled and that you can't trust government, you can't trust your doctors, you can't trust the authority and the organizations which were set up to protect and to preserve what we thought were our civil liberties and our justices, our freedoms, our values, that these powers and these organizations are the ones that are, working from behind the scenes to actually subjugate us to their tyranny. And it's a very difficult pill to swallow and to allow yourself to go there,
Yeah. And I mean, the work that Jonathan Clegg has done, showing it all on the money and everything, it just proves how the powers that be just planned this out, from day one, from the day they started building them.
Right. Yeah, it's I mean, to wrap your mind and try to embrace that these bombings and even future bombings, things that haven't happened and haven't occurred yet, are encoded on the money. And that if you really want to learn about what's coming and what they are planning, all you have to do is fold up the money and see
Yeah.
what depictions. Yeah, and that
Exactly.
is just mind blowing, you know.
Yeah, exactly. What was the Oklahoma City bombing that was on there as well?
Right, right. Yeah, the Pentagon, even the various stages of, the 9/11 buildings being
Right.
built, and
Under the
even
arch, no
being
less.
destroyed. Right. Yeah, the whole thing with the art, how the fountain was moved. Now we have the archways of Babel being constructed and put up everywhere. I think I just watched a video Kathy had sent me earlier about this individual that was talking about the symbolisms of the Antichrist and talking about all of these the archways going up and the all over the world, and how even with the G8 all that, it's just, I mean, it's all in your face, and
Right.
the agenda is so accelerated now and so beyond. They at one time they were kind of hush hush about what they were doing and keeping us in the dark, but now they don't care anymore. It's like, we dare you to try to stop us.
Oh yeah. I mean, and they're letting, people like us go out there and just say it, just,
Right,
freely, because it doesn't matter. There's so many people deceived right now.
right.
We're the crazy ones for thinking it,
Yeah,
even though it's
yeah,
in plain
exactly.
sight.
I
Right.
think where the church loses it is they don't believe in a supernatural God. I'm not sure what they think
Right.
God
Or
is,
a
but
supernatural adversary too.
yeah, and that's the
Right.
part that gets them in so much trouble, because that's about what's going on with the money. I mean, you look at the money and it's there precisely. The Oklahoma City bombing, the Twin Towers, all of that is right there on the money. That's what I keep telling people. They say, well, what's coming next? I know, well, New York City's in there. It's on the money. So,
Right.
that was one of the big things for me waking up, was to realize it's supernatural. What's going on in our world is supernatural. And, then that puts everything in the Bible in such a different light. So that was a big part of it for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole money thing, it's so hard, and yet it's so right there. It's undeniable. I mean, all you have to do is go through, look at all the different bills, and the people that have been doing this for a very long time. They show that every time there's
Right.
new money released, there's a new message. There's a new part and phase of the plan being unveiled, and
Right.
it's
And you fold it
absolutely
the same
something.
exact way.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and how all that, as Jonathan shows us, how all that is tied together with um, the Isaiah 14 of turning all things upside down, and how
Right.
they hide their plans in plain sight. So yes, it's all just in your face. They're not trying to hide anything. And I think it's because we've reached the end of days, and they know that with the blooming of the fig tree, they've only got a short time to try to
Right.
implement everything. And so that's why the rush and the acceleration as far as the agenda. Um,
Right. And I think that's another reason why they're letting us put the truth out there in plain sight, is because they know we don't have that long. We're about to be taken care of. Like, they don't have to make a big stink about us or try to, stop us. All that would do is just draw more attention to everything we're talking about.
right.
But,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
like where it says in the scriptures, let those that are evil be evil still, because
right.
the line in the sand is most certainly being drawn. And those that choose to not wake up and that are caught up in all the entrapments of this world and the amusements and the diversions that they say that they would establish and set up, it's going to
Yeah.
be, the strong delusion will affect those that have no love of the truth. And that's what we're seeing. We also see that just as the deceptions are so wide and so broad, truth is also being revealed in magnificent ways on an unimaginable scale. And
Right.
we are all part of that awakening, and so it's a beautiful thing. But
Yeah, I agree with you.
I wanted to ask you also, with regard to 9/11, you said that pretty immediately you were awakened to, as far as flat Earth and the truth of it. You did your research on the whole ancient aliens, and it is my belief that, the part of the whole reason for the heliocentric deception, the Darwinism, the evolution, and all that, and that there are, all these suns out there and all these worlds, all these planetary systems, is to set the premise for what I believe will be an alien counterfeit Messiah, the Antichrist, and that he will represent the belief that they're pushing on History Channel, the Ancient Aliens show, that the aliens, the extraterrestrials, are our creators, and that all of that is coming to the forefront even now. What do you think about that?
Yeah, most definitely. That seems like it's been a long time, but the Father also revealed that to me completely, and so that's pretty much the whole reason for my channel. Is just I'm hoping to get at least some of the message out there of the truth, because once they see aliens or asteroids or whatever they're going to be shown, this whole flat Earth thing is going away. It's going to be unheard of at that point. I mean, who would believe you anyway? If you were able to talk about it. So
yeah.
But yeah, the great deception with the aliens and the Antichrist, I think you're dead on. That's exactly what's going to happen.
And see, that's the remarkable thing about the flat Earth and the firmament, these two revelations, is that they have the power to immediately totally destroy the whole, as far as all of the ideologies which are connected, that that we evolved a monkey, of monkeys, that that there's all these other worlds out there, and that the extraterrestrials are from these way far off billions of light years away systems, or that the planets are other habitable places. It totally destroys and nullifies all that. And it helps for those that do embrace and begin to study Scripture in a way that it just, even being presented in the Genesis narrative, it affirms that you have to either study and believe God and what he says about his own creation, or you accept the authority of NASA and the astrophysicists and their professional opinions. And then when you again, look deeper into it, and you understand that they're all Masons and involved in the very secret societies that brought us this counterfeit system in the first place, then we can understand that they are the neoteric priests of Baal. They are the New Age priests, and that they are basically dishing out Scientism as the new religion, and that most people are on their knees bowing to it and accepting it as their theology. Yeah,
you're exactly right. It actually reminds me of something I wrote to a friend the other day. I'm going to read you just a piece of it here. It said, from the time we can talk, we are told we live on a globe in the vastness of space. That's something that parents are teaching their children about, completely clueless that they're lying to them. I've done it myself. Generation after generation, parents have unknowingly kept the lie going because they didn't know any different. We go through life and see nothing but globe all day, every TV show, every movie, on the news, the newspaper, logos, emblems, textbooks, encyclopedias. The teachers teach it, the preachers preach it. We can't even, look at a weather map anymore without seeing it on a ball. It's amazing that just to see it, how it's woven into our society, how it makes up, this desire in everyone where they can't let go of the globe, because they've been programmed their whole life.
It's in nearly every movie and TV show, and I've paid attention to some of them in the TV show Reign. Queen Elizabeth, which she was in power right around the time that Copernican model was even coming out, just being known. And here she has a globe right there, in in her chambers, or in her area. So yeah, it wouldn't work then, but they put it there.
Right.
Yeah, I saw this video, and I wish I would have saved it, but it was about these older depictions, illustrations, and artistic renderings of what the Earth would look like from space, and how they had all of these globe depictions, and all of these designs later came to be embraced as factual. That now we accept the whole theology that we live in a solar system where the Earth is one of 9 planets in orbit and spinning around the sun as the very center, the star which holds together the supposed gravity of the entire system. And
Right.
it's mind-blowing how really the whole heliocentric Darwinian worldview is based on science fiction. Its real roots are based on scientific writers. Even the whole premise of the satellites from Arthur C. Clarke,
Right.
that's really where its foundations and its origins are.
Yeah. I mean, I researched the thing, before making that video to see, where did satellites come from?
Mm-hmm.
And that's as far back as I could see that it went, was just, his sci-fi writings.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing with the thermosphere, I mean, it's so just so ludicrous, because they tell us that the thermosphere is these certain degrees and certain temperatures, and then they tell us that these 20,000 satellites in orbit around the Earth, that they're all made of these very malleable and pliable materials, and as you showed in that video, that all of these different things have melting points which are below the supposed average temperature of these particular portions of space, quote unquote.
Right.
And
It had
so,
to be sent through all of them.
right, yeah. So none of it makes sense. And when you confront people or talk to them about it, they just want to roll their eyes, and they just think you're absolutely crazy. And yet all the lies that are compounded upon the lies that are compounded upon the lies, that's the lunacy, believing any of all of that.
Oh, yeah.
And then giving any credibility to NASA when they tell us even now that they cannot get beyond the Van Allen radiation belts, and yet we're the ones that are supposed to be, the tinfoil hat wearing. I mean,
Right. And what I love about the Van Allen belts is it will mess up, the computer systems, or even,
right,
kill the astronauts if they go through it. But
right,
yet we park all of our geostationary satellites, right in the middle of it. So
right.
all of our satellite signals are going through this belt that will mess up the computers on the shuttles. But yet, if the rain clouds come over your house, your satellite signal goes out.
Right, yeah.
But they're in the Van Allen belts, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah,
The
exactly.
whole thing is ludicrous.
Right, it is. It's totally ludicrous. Yeah, well, we're almost to break. We've got about 2 minutes remaining, but can you talk about some of your other very popular and widely watched videos, some of the topics that you cover, and then when we come back from this break, we'll go into greater depth, in discussion about some of these issues.
Okay. I've done several on distances, to other planets or stars. It's so much, it's so ridiculous to think of how far away they actually say they are. And so they have compounded it and made it into this word, light years, where they can say it's 8.11 light years away, when really that means like 6 trillion miles or something, completely ridiculous.
Right.
So they use a lot of wording and great distances and everything to make their math work.
Mm-hmm.
And, I try to show whenever I can how absurd their math is.
Right.
Because to think that we can see some of that stuff is crazy.
Right. Yeah, here's the other thing too, is they tell you that, as far as the light rays from any of these stars, that they will travel an infinite amount of distance, when that's completely not true. Like if the sun were really 93 million miles away, we would never even see it. But yet they have us believing that, that all of these stars are at all of these great distances, and that somehow we're able to see their light. And yet the sun here, when it's circling above us, when it reaches a certain distance from us, we can't even see it then, so I mean, it's the absurdity of all that they have us indoctrinated into is just, it's absolute lunacy. All right, we'll be right back, everyone. All right, everybody, welcome back. We have a special guest this evening, Chris Queen of the YouTube channel The Potter's Clay. Chris, I wanted to make mention really quickly about the one that you did on Mercury, and you were talking about the distances and how we wouldn't even be able to see it. In watching that, I was thinking about how even, as small as Mercury is and as close in proximity as it's supposed to be to the sun, that if gravity were real, Mercury would have long ago been sucked into the sun, because it has no mass.
Yeah,
it has not enough mass to even keep it from being just sucked in and burned up. And yet the same gravity is supposed to hold all of these large, huge planets at very long distances in orbital rotation. All of that is just, sheer lunacy. But if you would, can you talk about that as well?
Yeah. Basically, I saw on the news how Mercury was supposedly going past the sun, and I think I included a little clip of it in that video too, with Mercury going past the sun. But it gets crazy close. So now that you're saying that about gravity, I've got a whole new video to make, apparently, because that's so true. It's the sun's gravity would definitely overcome, the gravity of Mercury and pull it right in. Well, it's just like thinking that our moon affects our waves, but somehow Earth's gravity doesn't affect the same water that's on it.
Right.
Over the moon's gravity. So.
Or butterflies.
Right. Yeah, or a stream of smoke or helium balloons. Or
I still don't get why Mark Sargent keeps thinking that gravity is a real thing. He keeps thinking that, and I want to set him straight. But
really?
Does he really?
Yes, he does.
I mean, it's so obvious.
Well, he thinks it's a force that we don't understand. So he still says that. I hear him because I'll listen to his show. But gravity is not a real thing. So, I mean, it's just another one of those things that they use in order to make everything else work. And it's just ludicrous when you think about it and take it apart. Just like you were saying, Mercury would have plowed into the sun long ago. Everything cannot stay in perfect, orbit in the way that they show us because of gravity. Gravity is a god to them. So.
Yeah, and in Genesis, when did God make gravity? Like
right.
He didn't make the sun that we're orbiting around until day 4.
Right.
So, were we spinning? If we were spinning, we'd have flown off, so we'd have had to have made gravity before that. They have to go together, I guess, at the same time. I mean, the whole thing doesn't make sense, even just looking at your Bible, which a lot of people just aren't doing.
Right, yeah, because you have so many people that, they come out in opposition on flat Earth, and yet you just go to the very first book of the Bible, the first 4 days, the description of the creation, the heavenly luminaries being put inside of the firmament, which was fitted to the circle of the earth. And they, as you said, created on the 4th day, placed into the firmament, which means they have to be very much smaller than either the firmament or the circle of the earth that the firmament is fitted to. And they're able to move in circuit, have their complete circuit, and the tabernacle that the Most High has established for them as house, it's within the firmament, and yet everybody thinks that, the sun and all these stars and all these heavenly luminaries are so much bigger than the earth, when the exact opposite is true, that the earth is so much larger. And this is another one of those things that is difficult for people to wrap their minds around. Because they think the sun is so huge that if it were above the earth and moving in a circuit around it, they expect that all the full circle of the earth would be at all times illuminated. But again, this is not true. And so tell us about some of the other things that, because immediately when I began looking into it, the non-existent curvature, and also the fact that the earth is not moving at any rate of speed, and that this is scientifically confirmed and verifiable by so many different experiments, which is why we even hosted and have put out an open challenge for several, $8,000 now to anybody that can confirm that either the earth is moving or that, there is any measurable curvature, because there is neither. And so what were some of the other things that led you to understanding that the biblical geocentric cosmology, that all of that was correct as laid out within Scripture and as dictated to Moses by the Lord God?
Really just the way it's laid out in the Bible, I guess God just gave me the knowledge to know that, what we're taught has nothing to do with what it says in there. Like you were saying on the sizes of everything, it clearly says he created, two great lights, a greater light to rule the day and a lesser light to rule the night. And he made the stars also, which right there means they're not as great as the first two lights. They're, lesser lights. They're smaller, but we're told they're, millions of times bigger than we are.
Right.
So I guess I just chose to side with the Bible. And then after that, I looked into other things that I had questions about. But yeah, the Bible is really what pulled me in, I guess, at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, the curvature thing, watch one or two videos on curvature, and you're going to be curious enough to watch 3 or 4, after that as well.
Right.
Especially if you're not just going to dismiss it immediately.
Right.
Which a lot of people do, sadly enough.
And, this is something that any of us, no matter where we are on the plane of the earth, we can go out and confirm for ourselves that there is no measurable curvature, that you can see things way beyond what they give us as the formula for determining the supposed 8 inches inversely squared according to the stretch of miles, that all of that official scientific and astrophysics recognized formula for determining curvature, that you can see the Statue of Liberty from 40 miles out, the Chicago skyline from 60 miles out across Lake Michigan. And all these things, we can prove these things where we are. People in Hawaii can see Oahu 100 miles distant. People in Miami can see Cuba, they're 30, 40 miles. All these things confirm that there is no curvature, and that all of that is just, again, a more lies heaped upon more lies.
Yeah, definitely. And the videos that Rob Skiba has come out with here in the last, I guess, month or two, just on the, the magnification, the lensing effect. Mm-hmm. It shows right there, why things seem to go below the curve and stuff like that, but it also explains perfectly how the sun sets. So, mm-hmm. I think he was led by the Holy Spirit on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I most certainly think that Rob is being led by the Holy Spirit, and that he's seeking out truth, and that's the reason why, and that we are all together, in similar fellowship, being led to so many truths and so many answers on not only this as topic and subject, but other things which are also connected to. I mean, there's so much that is being revealed and so much that we still don't know, that we still need to figure out. And we can't do that unless we're honest with embracing first the possibility that we don't know everything that we think we know, or that what we have been told and what we have been indoctrinated into, that our parents, our grandparents, their grandparents, that for the last half millennia, that we've all been deceived and lied to in embracing the whole Darwinian, Copernican, heliocentric model for understanding world. That, you know, there's so much yet to discover and so many answers that we need to come to terms with. But unless we embrace that we have been lied to and that we don't know everything, we can't even begin that journey.
Right. And that's the thing that a lot of people have a problem with. Because I know that right now I realize from all the stuff that I've learned over the past few years, how much I don't know. You know, still, I've got so many more questions now than I did, you know, before learning any of this stuff. But I've also come, you know, leaps and bounds a long way to, you know, having some kind of knowledge that I feel like God is revealing to a lot of people here, you know, near the end. But that seems to be the problem that a lot of people have, is just admitting they don't know, because science has answered all of these questions, you know.
Right. Supposedly.
Come up with these, exactly. These crazy, you know, numbers for everything that people just don't even bother checking into because they're sure the scientists are right about it. So we just won't even worry about it. We'll trust the guys in the lab coats.
Right.
And, you know, if those guys are lying, who's going to know? Nobody's checking. Because the way Satan's got this world set up, if you do decide to check into it, well, you must be nuts.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Some of the simple proofs I really like. You did one video that was the 7.5 mile laser test over the frozen lake, which also reminds me of the one the guy did with the mountain, or the mountains, 3 different mountains in North Carolina. I love those. Can you speak about that one with the laser test over the frozen lake?
Yeah, I mean, those two guys were communicating with flashlights because I guess his walkie-talkie didn't work that evening. And so they were 7.5 miles away communicating through their flashlights with each other. And he could zoom in on the laser that was, you know, over the frozen lake. But I'm not sure what the curvature is on 7.5 miles off the top of my head. It's like 32 feet or something like that. But there's no way there was 32 feet of curvature if they were communicating with their flashlights.
Right.
And they did it at night, so it was really obvious.
Right. I mean, they could see exactly where each other was. So there was no 32-foot bulge in between the two of them in that ice.
Yeah, and see, this is something that is observable and easily replicated. Anybody can go get a laser pointer and do the same kind of test depending on, you know, what the strength of the laser, or even determine that you can see a certain monument or cityscape or whatever in excess of what we are told we are supposed to be able to do. And even at, you know, 10 miles, I mean, there's supposed to be like I forget exactly, I should pull up the chart, but I mean, there's a lot of curvature.
6.6.
Yeah, you're right. And then there again, the other thing with this whole heliocentric worldview is all the 666 numbers. You know, like 23.4, the inclination of the Earth, the supposed tilt. You subtract that from the 90 degrees, and you get 66.6. You know, then the as far as the speed of the supposed Earth, 18.5 seconds per mile. When you take that and you multiply it by 60 for every minute, and then 60 for every a second, it's like 66,600 miles per hour. Right. I mean, all these, I mean, and so even like the supposed velocity of the spin is like 1037.541666666. I mean, and so that should let you know, that all these numbers are totally indicative of who this model is really serving. And because we know that, Satan is a pagan sun god. He's worshipped
Helios.
as Helios, and so he told us what he was going to do in Isaiah 14. I'm going to exalt my throne above the stars of God, above the clouds of God. I will be like the Most High, and he most certainly has succeeded in replacing. First, the cosmology, the calendar system, the holy days, the feast days, all of that has been replaced, and now everything's just idolatrous and pagan and counterfeited and subjugated.
Well, the sun worship goes back to serpent worship too. They're mixed up together.
Absolutely right. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. But what are some of the other most interesting? I know that you talked about the satellites and the thermosphere and all that is just lunacy. Because again, if there were 20,000 satellites up there, all falling freely in order to stay in orbit around the Earth, and yet they're all have different angles and trajectories, and yet none of them have ever run into each other or have ever burned out or have ever hit the space station or the space shuttle. I mean, how does anybody keep up with 20,000 satellites? I mean, that's
and for one thing, we had to get them there somehow too. So like the Epic satellite or whatever that has sent back so many pictures of the Earth, here in the last couple of years, it's somehow sitting out there in orbit with us around the sun, staying perfectly between Earth and the sun, 1 million miles away from Earth.
Miles. Yeah, that's the one that took the moon slingshotting by.
Oh my gosh, that is ridiculous.
Right, so we have our space station, the ISS, supposedly up there, falling around the Earth at 17,000 miles an hour, and it's only like 240 miles up or something like that. But 1 million miles away, they can be in perfect orbit with us, around the sun even.
And get a signal. And get a signal down here. Yeah.
And get a signal to send us pictures over and over. So,
yeah, how fast would they have to be, in orbit if the Earth is moving 1,037 miles an hour and they're 1 million miles away from us? I mean, they would have to be booking it. I mean, like light speed just to keep up. It's so ludicrous. But
to think we got it out that far is what's mind blowing. I mean, just the fact that they say that there's that magic point. If you get it to that point, it's going to just lock in and it's going to stay, between the Earth and the sun forever from that point. But
and while the Earth
it's 1 million miles away from us.
And the Earth,
the Earth is traveling.
Yeah, exactly. It's all moving so fast.
3-4 different directions. Thousands and maybe millions of miles an hour if you add it all up.
Right. And
somehow that satellite to get to that 1 million mile point and then just buckle up and lock in with us. Now we're together.
Yeah.
And the constellations never change.
Right, and they never move. And you remember the sun is also, moving in grand orbit around some galactic center. And so that's all happening too. And then the Milky Way itself is all, moving in rotation around the universal center. So, I mean, it's all crazy. And yet the stars haven't changed for thousands of years. Polaris sits right there at the center of the vaulted dome, the one lone fixed star, and all the other stars move in circuit around it. And it's been that way for thousands of years. The mariners, these different voyagers have been able to utilize Polaris as navigation tool for thousands of years to determine which direction is north, and yet we're supposed to buy into that the Earth is moving, the sun is moving, the Milky Way is moving, everything's moving, and yet the stars never changed.
Right. And there's no parallax either. They never
Right.
cross in front of each other. They don't go at different speeds.
Right. They're all moving
all
at the
going
same
exact
rate
same
of speed. Exactly.
And has been forever and always will. That makes perfect sense.
Right, right. Yeah, again, when you begin to really examine all the lies that have been heaped upon lies to develop the whole heliocentric worldview, how much faith one really has to have to buy into all of that it's phenomenal.
It's all built on. Yeah, it's all built on each other too. I mean, you've got
right.
big numbers on either side of it, but Satan's had 6,000 years to come up with the perfect plan to suck everybody in here at the end.
Yes, yes.
He's come up with it. But I try to look at it when I'm making videos, especially kind of work it backwards. Like, if we are flat, stationary, have a dome, stars are circling above us, it makes more sense to think of, well, what type of lies would they have to tell, to cover this up? And so that's the reason for their huge numbers. That's the reason for all these, planets they're discovering here recently, is because they're getting ready to fake the aliens. So they got to have.
Oh yeah, most certainly.
So,
right.
It's all building on itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I think the Most High has brought out this truth in this manner now, because this one has the capacity, the power to immediately just abominate, destroy, and abolish that whole, being sucked into where you would be willing to accept the extraterrestrials as your creator or as your God. That anybody that really studies the Bible and comes to understand that the gospel is 100% prophetic and also inspired by has to be inspired by the mind of God that actually built the cosmology and established it in the manner that we perceive it for us. That his word is the truth, and that if you want the truth, you have to go to his word and the things that he's revealed through his apostles and prophets, and that you can totally depend on that, and that you won't be misled or led astray. But that those that don't, and that accept the whole, the ancient alien mythology and mythos and the new neoteric theology being put forth, and that they're going to be caught up in strong delusion. And so, and most will, and that's the tragedy about it, is that most won't do the research, they won't do the investigation, and they will get caught up in the lie. They will bow to these alien gods, and they will accept the mark, and it will be to their detriment.
Right. I almost think that Satan is building a spiritual Tower of Babel, and everything is built on it. You've got evolution, the Big Bang, aliens, the reason for atheism, the infinite, ever-expanding universe, why man's not important, the alien abductors that explain away the rapture, asteroids, solar waves, that disguise the judgments of God so man doesn't repent. It's a spiritual Tower of Babel. And I think the aliens are maybe the last card. I mean, they're the ones at the top of that tower that's building. Yeah, the eye of the pyramid.
Eye at the top of the Illuminati pyramid, absolutely. Yeah, I fully agree. And that's where it's all headed. And so that's why, we appreciate your work and the things that you're doing, and others like you that are making very short and very concise videos to help people to understand, because I know that a lot of the, as far as the narrow focus of this generation, that they have a short attention span, and that they are unwilling to listen to 2 hours of a radio broadcast like we do, which, if I had more time, I would really break up our shows, but I don't have the time. And so I just put it all out there, let it get to whoever but I know that a lot of people seek out and are only willing to watch very short segments because, again, that short attention span, and they're not willing to invest 2 hours into some subject. And so,
Right.
I think
You know,
you are
especially the
raising
one
a
that
lot
they
of.
might consider, yeah, especially one they consider to be crazy anyway. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
they're not gonna sit there and listen to 2 hours of something they already think is crazy. But you
Yeah,
know, if I can just
especially
give them some little morsel to
right.
chew on, like, did you think about it this way? Then
Yeah.
maybe that'll just irritate them enough to watch something. So,
Right. Yeah. And especially if the person that they may listen to, like myself, has been labeled, blacklisted by most of the alternative truth movement and, labeled crazy in one way or the other. But when we come back from this break, I want to touch upon some of the other esoteric subjects, like specifically Serpent Seed. I want to see how you came to that knowledge and what you think about that. But if you would, go ahead and give out your website one more before we go to break.
yeah, they can just search all one word, the Potter's Clay, no apostrophe in Potters.
All right, excellent. And do you monitor that website if people were to contact you and write you? Do you keep up with the
Yeah,
commentary and all that?
yeah,
Pretty
yeah.
good.
We started doing better about that. They never
Okay.
notify me when I have messages, so I just have to check them.
Yeah, right.
Leave
Yeah,
him
they
a
don't-
comment. He's good on the comments.
Yeah, there you go.
Right on. All right, we'll be right back, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody, for second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed, and I have as co-host with me this evening, and a lot of evenings, Kathy Hudson. Hey, Kathy.
Some are later than others.
Yes, we're beginning our 2-hour conference calls after the show this evening.
Yeah,
Kathy's
right.
so looking forward to that. But
Wow.
seriously, I want to.
No.
No, I'm teasing her. She doesn't stay up late. But anyways, I want to ask the listening audience to please pray for Blue Raven USA and for Scott Hensler. They are being messed with in different ways by the powers that be, and so I'm just going to ask that the Most High God watch over each of you, protect you, and keep you safe, and to not allow the devils or the demons to have their way or to bring upon you their bidding. And that I just pray that the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit put a power of protection upon you so that you can come to health and well-being in doing what you need to be doing for the Most High God in service to the kingdom and to the people. And so, and if everybody else listening would do the same, I would greatly appreciate that. And the other thing is I would ask everybody to please pray for Dr. Joy Pugh and her husband, Mel, that they're still going through the consequences of his having taken a flu vaccine and gotten Guillain-Barré, and the paralysis has been spreading for a very long time now. And so please pray for them as well. And if anybody else out there is struggling or suffering and needs prayers, just please contact us. ZenGarcia2010@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on Facebook, both myself, Zen Garcia, or Kathy Dunson, and we'll be glad to pray for all of you, any of you, and that I always do anyways. I pray for all my listeners every night and every day, all my daily prayers whenever I pray over my meals or even just, the water that I'm taking into my body. Just a morning, just awakening to new day and just giving gratitude and showing thanks to the Most High God that really I try to live in prayer. And so I would hope that all of you would also live similarly and also acknowledge just the blessings that we are given by God every day in being able to wake up and experience just the awesome, the great mystery of the creation that surrounds us. And so, but also this evening we have Chris Queen from the Potter's Clay YouTube channel as our special guest. And Chris, if you would, let's shift gears just a little bit and talk to us a little bit about how you became exposed to the idea that what occurred in the garden with the serpent's beguilement of Eve, that is what resulted in what we see as this separate bloodline, this Canaanite bloodline, this the New World Order elites and their whole contingent, their family faction, and how they've been working against us and trying to subject us to devastation and destroying us from the shadows. And we don't even understand who our enemies are, if you would.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people have no idea who their enemies are.
Right.
I guess Jonathan Kleck has really shown me a lot, I
Mm-hmm.
would say. I mean, I was aware, of like the Nephilim and, stuff like that. But as far as what happened in the garden and how everything got started, that was all Jonathan Kleck. And honestly, I was praying for the Lord to, confirm it for me because, the first time anybody hears about that, it's you can't just take that in and just be okay with it. I had to take it to the Lord, instantly.
Oh, most
And so,
certainly.
right. And so I was, praying for, just confirmation if that's the truth, because I really felt like it just struck me as true. And so I wanted to know, Lord, I'm not being deceived, am I? And, sure as I had those thoughts, it was the first time that I'd heard Jonathan read, I think it was out of Isaiah, where it talks about, and you should be as esteemed as the potter's clay. And when he said that, I about fell out of my chair. I was like, wow. I guess that was my confirmation.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
Jonathan Black really opened my eyes to a lot of that.
Oh, that's funny because I had wondered if you came after Jonathan. So that's cool.
No, I wrote a song on guitar when I was like 16, which I'm 33 now. I hate to even say that with the number 33, but when I was 16, and one of the verses in it I put was, I'm the clay and you're the potter. And so when I created my YouTube account in 2015, I just put, the potter's clay. And then it was probably 6 or 8 months later before I heard Jonathan Kleck say it. I was like, wow.
Yeah, very amazing. Cool. Yeah, Johnny and I, we've been confirming witness for one another with regard to this as topic. And it's been a very interesting journey because both of us came to it from different direction. Of course, we know he has a supernatural gift for unlocking and decoding so many things that are hidden in plain sight, like the money and the different things that he covers, the commercials and all kind of other stuff. But that the Most High led me to this in studying the ancient texts and studying, all the ancient manuscripts and resources that way. Yeah, Enoch as well, all of them. As I show in the release of my new book, I mean, there's hundreds of confirmations from so many, a wide array and variety of sources, which help people to understand this as truth, and that when you embrace it, it helps to unlock and to make sense of so much of that which is hidden within Scripture, like, how it is that Eve eating an apple led to the conception of Cain, and that suddenly there was a seed of a woman and a seed of the serpent. How does that play out if this apple really is an apple, and all the things that are also tied to it, like Matthew 13, where Christ speaks about the enemy sneaking into the garden, and that the enemy is the wicked one that sowed the tares, that the devil is the father of the tares. I mean, so many things like that just, like the flat earth cosmology quotes in scriptures, we just glanced over them without even really understanding them, and they were never insightful or meaningful as they are now. That when you have the key for unlocking that truth and you read those passages, so much comes to light and comes to, as far as opening your mind to what the real meaning of those passages are. And so Well, talk to us about some of the other things, anything as far as verses, passages which are connected to not even serpent seed, but flat Earth. I mean, like I know when I read like Joshua 10 once more after and him being given the
Right.
power to stop the sun and the moon. Um, if it's the Earth that is spinning that causes the sun to set, why wouldn't God give him authority over the Earth and the moon and not the sun and the moon? And so those
Right.
kind of things they come about. The whole thing in Isaiah 38 with the sun going back 10 degrees on the sundial. How if it was the Earth that caused the rotation and the sun to set, the Earth would have had to have been stopped and then rolled back in the opposite direction, and then once it went back 10 degrees, then allowed to pick up and to
Continue
move in
spinning
its
there.
normal orbit. I mean, how catastrophic would that have been, as far as
Right.
earthquakes, tsunamis, tidal waves? I mean, and yet nobody died, nothing. It was just just a regular day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's tons of places in the Bible like that, like you said in Joshua and in Isaiah, with the sun there. But also there's places where people don't even think about, like the Tower of Babel. They
Hmm.
were building up to something. If we were on a
Right.
spinning ball, God could have just let them have at it, because as soon as they got to where, the 1,000-mile spin reaches the atmosphere or the vacuum of space, it would have destroyed the Tower of Babel.
Hmm.
Or even just the temperature changes would have killed the people working on the Tower of Babel,
Right. Right.
that we're told. So just science and the Bible just don't seem to mix, especially when, you're aware of the truth.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and another one of the passages that I found in connection to this, it talked about how they were trying to break open the firmament to get to to God, to wage war against God and the inhabitants
Right.
of paradise. And then some of the other things with regard to that, we did a show not long ago, Kathy and I, on how in Isaiah where it speaks about the firmament would be opened when Christ comes again, and that even New Jerusalem, that the firmament would be rolled back like a scroll, and that the forces of Christ would come down from the North Pole, because that's where God has established the heavenly kingdom, and his
Right.
throne is directly above Polaris. And so all these things then begin to make sense. The fact that uh, when Christ comes again, every eye shall see him from the east to the west, as like the lightning that scatters across the sky. Um,
Yeah.
Nebuchadnezzar's dream, um, and then the other one where Satan took him to the mount of the congregation and showed him all the kingdoms of the world. All
Right.
these things only make sense if you apply it to the plane of the earth. And
Yeah. And all means all. So there's nowhere on the globe he could have seen all the kingdoms.
right, right, exactly.
Yeah. And another one would be, when the stars fall.
Oh
Jesus
yeah.
himself told us the
Yeah,
stars were going to fall.
yes, exactly.
And so when Jesus, I mean, that's in red letters. So when Jesus says that, you only have so many options. Either Jesus didn't know what the stars were, which I don't believe that, because he's
Right.
God and he knows exactly what the stars are,
Yeah, he
or
made them.
Jesus knew what the stars, yeah, or he knew what the stars were, and the word he said even meant stars, but he really meant asteroids and comets and meteors. I don't believe that either, because Jesus himself is the truth. And so,
Yes,
he's
exactly.
going to speak the truth. And so the only other option is that Jesus knew exactly what the stars were, and meant that near the end of days, they would literally begin to fall out of the sky.
Right, right. Yeah,
And
I agree with you.
I don't
Yeah,
see another way to take it.
right. Yeah, most certainly those are passages that when you bring them up to the people that still are holding on to the whole, the NASA theology, scientism as faith, because really that's what they are indoctrinated into. They
Oh, definitely.
embrace scientism really as their theology over that of the truth of the scriptures. because they want
It
to
is their religion.
incorporate that. It is their religion, and they are wanting to incorporate those truths and those understandings into their worldview. And they want to then also mold the scriptures and fit them according to their belief systems, which again, just in Genesis, the timeline, it's totally contradictory to the way that NASA affirms the solar system came into being, that everything, the whole model for planetary accretion, and how the planets spinning, how they came together and formed mass and then became these planetary objects. I mean, all of that is totally contradictory to the way that the Genesis timeline is set up. It was the earth that was here before the heavenly luminaries were created. The firmament was fitted to it. The dry land was separated from the sea level, and then the dry land dried out, and that's where we were placed, the creatures of the earth, to inhabit the dry land. And God created all the other creatures to fill the air and the oceans, and we came together as one great, incredible ecosystem. And then the luminaries were constructed, the two great lights, meaning that the moon also exhibits its own light and is not dependent upon the light of the sun, and that the stars as luminaries as well, not planetary objects nor other star or sun systems, but that they are just heavenly luminaries in and of themselves, that there are no other Earth-like planetary systems, that we are it. We are the only game in town, and we're the narrow focus of our God. He's not having to look out over all these other planets and all these other star systems and all these other dimensional realities or all these other worlds, that we are it, and he is watching over us as his bride, as his prodigal child.
Amen. And that's exactly what Satan's trying to cover up. I mean, desperately. He's trying to back engineer the whole thing. And, that's where we get so much of the ridiculousness,
Right.
The huge numbers and, all that. It's because he's trying to back engineer God's creation so that there's just this remote possibility that it happened, out of chance and chaos, just so there can be no God. I mean, the whole thing is to hide God.
I find that a lot of Christians say, but God could have done it that way. And can't you conceive that he would have been, thinking to do it in such an incredible fashion, all of that. And that's all fantasy that they are putting into the word, which isn't in the word at all. And the other thing I think about that is all this dark space and dark matter. To me, that's not how God creates. I don't see that as being dark. I see that as being the adversary.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I sometimes wonder, when I read passages about, the abyss and, the beast that came out of the sea, if maybe that's above us, if the abyss is the firmament.
I've got ideas on that, because I'm actually working on a book right now called Paradise, the Sides of the North and the Mount of the Congregation. And in the cosmology that I'm bringing out, it actually speaks about 7 heavens and also 7 levels of Sheol leading down into the abyss and to the bottomless pit. That, but that Jacob's ladder is located in the sides of the north. That's where the portal to the throne room of the Most High God is. But that's also where Job speaks of hell being naked beneath, and that there's a hole at the North Pole that leads down into the earth, and there's a giant whirlpool there which sucks in the waters of the ocean, and then every 6 hours it reverses course. It will spit out all the waters, and that's what creates the cycles of the high and the low tides on the earth, because it's the earth and the ocean surrounding it are like a giant bathtub, the waters are held into place, and the sea level is what divides the dry land. But yeah, there's so much to, so much that is interesting with regard to all that
Oh
we are
yeah.
learning, and the way that it all works. Because I would have never have even imagined, or I would have believed. Who would have thought, a giant whirlpool at the very center of the earth that sucks in the oceans and spits them out? But this is also what the old explorers themselves say in the Arthurian legends, the poetic Eddas, the Celtic mysteries, all these different things. Even the Bible, in certain instances, in certain places, as I will bring out in this new book, speaks about this, there being this this spout at the center of the earth, and also the Mount of the Congregation, which is the magnetic mountain which attracts all the compasses towards the north. That this huge magnetic mountain is there, and that's why it's called the Mount of the Congregation, and that's where it attracts all the compasses, all the, everything points north, and that's why this one.
That's really interesting. That was one of the questions that I had was, what's attracting the compasses? I didn't know if it would be, like Polaris itself, or if there was actually something in the center of the Earth.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
In the middle, I guess, not the center.
Right. Yeah, well, it is kind of the center in the middle, but it's, that's the very center of what is the circle, the plane. And all of this is fascinating because when you look at the old accounts of the various explorers, like I have also included within this book a letter that was sent to John Dee by Gerard Mercator, who was the creator of the Mercator map. He was the foremost map maker during that time, and he shows the divisions, this magnetic mountain at this very center of the North Pole, and these four rivers diverging, these four mountain ranges, and all of this is found also in the books of Enoch. I mean, it's fascinating once you're able to make the connections and then to tie all of these things that we're speaking about together. It's most certainly mind-blowing, and when I bring all this together, it will even elaborate further on my other two books, The Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch, and also the Firmament, Vaulted Dome of the Earth. And it's a follow-up to that, but I mean, all the information in those two books is absolutely mind-blowing as well. Have you considered putting together anything like that as far as a book of your work, or anything like that, or do you have any other projects that you'll be working on, documentaries or anything of that nature?
The only thing I've been toying with, and I don't know how to do it yet, is I want to do another top 10, because I did top 10 reasons I don't trust NASA, and it was about 30 minutes long, but it had quite a bit of NASA information in it. But I was thinking about doing a top 10 reasons why I believe the Earth is flat, and there's just so many more than 10 that I'm trying to figure out how to, I guess, word it and put it together. That's about the only one that's on the back burner right now.
Right on. Well, those were some of the ones that I watched as well, and I think that will be greatly beneficial for other people too, because I like the way that you break those down and showing fact upon fact upon fact, in order to help people to and encourage them to continue with their study of going down the rabbit hole. Because this is such a huge topic, and I believe it's vastly important. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, this is just dividing the brethren," or "This is just a distraction."
Right.
But in my opinion, what greater deception has led more people astray from the knowledge that they were created in intelligent design by the Most High God, that they were created in His image, that the earth was created for us as a special place, a habitation. I mean, Darwinian, heliocentric, it has most people believing that we evolved as monkeys. Look at all the
Right.
children that are brought up in the educational system, how so many of them are led into atheism and doubt of the nature of a supreme being, just because it's indoctrinated into our educational systems. And so, in my
Right.
opinion, this is the greatest threat to really our eternal inheritance, is this deception.
I agree. I mean, the deception is going to be huge. I mean, as soon as the aliens get here, I think that's pretty much what their end game is. That's what they're waiting. Is that? And so that's a lot of the reasons why I make videos. Is because I'm thinking, maybe if we go home before that happens, maybe some of these videos will be spread out throughout YouTube, and just deleting my channel won't get it. They'll still be floating around out there and can open some eyes.
Yeah. I know that the scriptures tell us that before Christ comes again in second coming, that the counterfeit beast system and that the Antichrist is revealed. And so,
Right.
however that plays out, we will be part of that deception. And in my opinion, we won't get a chance to go home until the beast system comes into place and plays out, at least to a certain degree. How, to what degree, that's all, speculative, and that, but certainly I do believe that the scriptures are clear that the Antichrist is revealed first. And so,
Right.
What are some of the other things? Well, actually, we've got a minute remaining. So when we come back from break, I'm going to ask you about just, kind of what you think is on the horizon, what you think is coming. And Kathy, also, if there's any news or current events that we need to be made knowledgeable of, if you'll share them in that segment as well. So
I got a couple stories.
Okay, well, we'll get Chris to comment on those as well. Yeah, so we'll be right back for final segment, everybody. We hope that you are appreciating the show and the fellowship, and we thank all of you for joining us this evening, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. For final segment, I'll read this passage really quick. It says, "For they had said, 'Come and let us build for ourselves a city, and let us take axes and break open the firmament, so that the water flow from there and descend below, that he may not do unto us as he did to the generation of the flood. And let us wage war with those in heaven, and establish ourselves there as gods." The Chronicles of Jeremiah, chapter 30. All right, I want to turn this back over. Let me give it over to Kathy and have you bring up a couple of things, Kathy, and then we'll get Chris to comment, and then we'll continue on from there.
Well, I thought you would both find these stories interesting. They're related. Well, kind of. They're related. This morning, the news came out and said the FBI admits it was not the Russians, launches manhunt for insider who leaks CIA documents to WikiLeaks. And
Wow.
yeah, but then just before the show, it said there was a new headline: U.S. preparing charges to arrest Julian Assange. So that's going on. And they said, this was at Zero Hedge, this latest revelation comes after CIA Director Mike Pompeo ramped up the Trump administration's rhetoric against WikiLeaks, describing it as a non-state hostile intelligence service. Ironically, as we noted earlier this morning, Pompeo's comments came just days before the FBI and CIA admitted that they are searching for an insider at the CIA, not a Russian, who exposed thousands of top secret documents that describe CIA tools used to penetrate smartphones and televisions, computer systems. So I thought that was really interesting. I hate to see that they're going on a witch hunt on Julian Assange. So anyway.
You've got to wonder how much of that is just the world being a stage too.
Yeah.
How much is just to
totally
distract everybody from, keep the rats running around in the maze. Don't let them
right
figure anything out.
Yeah, I have people on our Facebook page wondering if Julian Assange is for real anymore, if he's still alive, or was he real in the first place?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's like an Illuminati card that looks just like him too.
Oh, I
really?
didn't know that.
Well, that's
Yeah,
fascinating because a lot of those Illuminati cards are very interesting in that they forecast, even the one with Trump on it as well.
And Twin Towers, and Pentagon, and everything wrong there too.
Yeah, most certainly. Even the flat Earth,
Right.
So those Illuminati cards are very, very interesting. But yeah, you have to wonder, with the all the world is a stage, who is real anymore, and how they control the alternative truth movement by creating gatekeepers, mockingbirds, and asserting their, giving them credibility in certain manner by having them predict this or predict that or say this or say that. But yet so much of what is also connected to truth, they just won't go there.
Well, and beyond them, everything else is propaganda. I mean, the Western media is practically entirely propaganda. So it's just really difficult these days to know what is truth. And we, like Justin said the other day on Facebook, Justin, your son, he just wants to know what the truth is.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and just like, where you and I, Kathy, we were talking about I-85 and how all of that with Charles, and I had brought up how there's no way that a fire destroyed that concrete steel reinforced bridge system, and to have it collapse in a perfect square, and then there's all these other stories that are connected to it. This lawyer, this structural engineering lawyer was murdered on the streets that same day. We just had yesterday on Interstate 20, they said that a gas leak caused the road to ripple upwards, and it created this huge crack and destroyed part of the interstate on 20. It's like how gas could do that. It would just leak out. It would never, cause the road to rupture like that. But anyways, just the ridiculous stories that we are told everywhere now. And, it's my opinion that lately, over the course of the past couple of years, that a lot of these fires, just like the one that destroyed Gatlinburg, Tennessee up here, that those were set on purpose, and that that they're keeping these kind of things hush hush. And it's my opinion that this is some of the terror tactics that are going on right now in our country, but they're keeping it quelled. The destruction of certain pipelines, that's been ongoing and happening almost habitually now. There's so many things that with all the chemtrails, all the rain is drying up, the weather systems are being shifted. It's getting hotter. The summers here are coming faster and hotter, and the rain, like we were forced through severe drought this past year. How's it going for you over there in Oklahoma? And where are you from, Chris?
I'm actually about an hour and a half away from Gatlinburg, that same area where the fire was.
Oh, really? Wow. So, yeah, about all that. What about, like, the chemtrailing up there? I mean, are you seeing a lot of that as well?
Oh, yeah. It's terrible, and it's every day. That's one of those things. I guess I didn't mention that, but I've watched those for years now, and I've tried to point them out to people, and people just don't care.
Right.
But it's so obvious. I mean, they're playing tic-tac-toe up there.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
People don't seem to notice.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, tic-tac-toe, and that's going to somehow be natural. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Oh, and the color of the sky is milky white or gray. It's never blue like it used to be. I mean, it's just horrendous what we experience in the world around us, and so few do look up and even pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, you can go out in the morning and watch them start chemtrail in the sky, and by that afternoon, your sky is completely whited, like it's
Right.
just white out.
Right.
And I always say it looks like they got their movie screen up, because it looks like a big old movie screen up there, like they could just project whatever they wanted to on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other thing, which the correlation that I've really noticed and paid attention to, is how they always spray right before the rainstorms come in. Well, I think part of it has to do with they are breaking up the systems, they're shifting the weather patterns, but also that the rain carries the toxins down to and vaporizes it, so that when it hits the concrete or the earth, that it turns into vapor, and we are breathing all these toxins in, all these heavy metals, and it's causing diseases, Morgellons and things like that in the population.
And there's so many respiratory problems now too that we didn't used to have like this.
Right. And then
clearly they're poisoning us.
Oh yeah, most certainly. And then there's the other side of it. They speak about, and different people talk about, the whistleblowers on these projects. They say that there's a mass hypnosis and mind control segment to this whole thing that we just don't truly understand, and how all that plays out as well. But most certainly it is. I mean, even the guy John Banyan or whatever his name is with the CFR, he talked about this and even said that we're spending $10 billion a year on this program, and it's still people deny it. It's just beyond me.
And I think I saw Richie from Boston put out something that Harvard now has this big story talking about chemtrails and how it's okay and how they're doing it for us, and it's for
they're admitting that they're going to do a program to reflect the sun's rays back. I mean, that's what they've been doing, but now they're admitting that they're going to do a program, and to help us, to
save us, right?
Yeah,
to save us from ourselves. Yeah, I guess the ancient aliens must have told them, you need to start chemtrail in the skies.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Well, I think that the only research I really enjoy, because all of those things are very discouraging, and I mean, it keeps me from wanting to go outside and do my exercise. But anyway, the thing I really enjoy researching is the flat Earth. And Chris, you put out some of the best videos I believe that are available, and it is your approach. You have a real flair with how you make them, and they're short, and a lot of people can digest that, or they might click it and start it, because that's one of the hardest things, is to get people to even watch something. But I really appreciate yours for that. One that you did that really made a big splash was the Super Bowl commercial. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that one, they wore these jerseys for the Super Bowl for each team, and the woman astronaut actually had the away jersey for the Patriots, I think is who was away. I don't really keep up with football.
I think
you're talking about the International Space Station, right? And how they got the jerseys up there really quick. Yeah.
Right. So I made this video on it, and it was, I think, 3 days later, NASA came out with a video on their Facebook page that showed them opening this box and pulling out all the jerseys from all the different teams. But then that still doesn't explain how they knew, the Patriots are going to be the away team. Because they didn't have one of each, for all of them.
Right. So, that's ridiculous.
They had to cover their bases on that one.
Mm-hmm. It just shows you that is local, just like that George Bush video where he's going through NASA headquarters, and they got that one astronaut, Tim Peake, who's supposedly up there on the International Space Station. He's standing in front of one of those blue screen chromacone screens. Yeah, and they're making videos of him supposedly up there in space, playing with the whatever it is they always play with to show that they're not in zero gravity. It is so ludicrous.
Now, they got caught on that one. I mean, he was clearly in front of a chroma key screen playing with a tennis ball.
Right.
So,
Totally.
and in other videos where with the same edges, like around the green screen, there's videos of him with the same exact edges,
Right.
and he's with like a water bubble that he's
Right.
recorded. So it's CGI, but I mean it's obvious.
And
people don't seem to pick up on it.
Another thing that just shows the sheer lunacy, the madness of believing the lie, and how deep the conspiracy goes with regard to all that, is how these women up there, these female astronauts, they have their hair sprayed, straight up, like the gravity is gonna do that to their hair. It's just so laughable. It's just it is insane that people would believe.
I mean, it looks stiff as a board.
Right.
Some of these hairdos.
Right.
When it should probably flow more like water. Like if they're underwater, I would think that would be. But I would think also they'd have to have their hair cut short. I mean, for a job like that, they have to put it up or cut it off, something.
Instead, they're washing their hair with water up there. Water's floating everywhere.
And that water would be such a high commodity. And then with all the electronics, that all this water is just splashing everywhere. It's just ludicrous. It is so ludicrous.
Which even the electronics up there doesn't make sense, because in any company, where they've got like a server room or something like that, you've got all the wires that are twist tied down and everything's nice and neat. Just, looks perfect. They don't want any dust in there or anything. And then you go look at the ISS, and there's wires everywhere. I mean, they're floating around. They could easily get snagged on any one of these wires that are connected to whatever they're connected to. It's just, it doesn't make sense. I would think that of all places would be clean.
Yeah, the other thing with the construction of the ISS, how it is not compartmentalized the way that even a submarine is, so that, if one part was breached, they could they could seal it up and, protect the astronauts in the other aspect of the International Space Station. But that is not even built into the schematics, which shows to me that, it's all bunk.
Yeah. And there's no footage whatsoever of it being built. I mean, it's man's greatest, I guess the moon landing was greatest achievements. But,
right. And they lost all that footage.
Right. And that, went missing somehow.
Yeah.
But, there's no footage of it being built. We've got footage of the Statue of Liberty being built and, different things throughout history. But that one we didn't do footage of?
Yeah, didn't document
somebody
that.
Filmed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because that should be several IMAX movie specials, The building of the International Space Station. Watch how we progress, Yeah.
And honestly, think of how easy it would be for them to debunk the flat Earth if everything was real. I mean, they could take it and be like, okay, we're sitting in a rocket. We're going to have this unedited footage. We're just going to look out the window the whole time and just go to space.
Right.
Go to space, show us the International Space Station docking and going into it. But they can't do it.
Right. And that's why people shouldn't buy into all their bogus bull. I mean, that's one of the main reasons, is the fact that they can't show us right now, in the age of 20,000 satellites up there orbiting the Earth at all times, and yet we can't get a 24-hour live stream of the Earth from all different angles. Come on, really?
But then the other thing is, I'm sorry, real quick. The thing that we do see is the balloons that are going up to 120,000 feet, and they show perfectly flat horizon. They show a close sun. They show the hot spots. Those are the things that, to me, I see that, and I think it can't be anything but flat, and it can't be anything but close sun.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, the way the sun hits the water, like at the beach, so it's rising or setting, it's clearly a local sun. There's no way that the sun wouldn't illuminate the entire ocean, in that same way, like all the way up to your feet, on the shore, if it was that far away. It's just like headlights on a rainy street. how they just illuminate locally right in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same exact thing with their sun.
Right. And then the fact that all of the images that we do have the Earth in its glory, the supposed blue marble, that all these images are composites, and then they can't even keep the size of the continents, correct in going from one to the other, that the Earth just keeps changing sizes, and the continents keep, North America keeps, getting smaller and getting larger, almost like it's a sponge, and it's ridiculous. Right. It just is absolutely ludicrous. But
yeah, I did a video on that today on how North America was so huge in 2012 on the blue marble.
Yeah.
And I took it to timeanddate.com, which shows like the sun, like where the sun illuminates the Earth. And I just copied that 2012 globe and put it up on the map. And there's so much more sunlight that should be on that Earth. I mean, all of South America is in the sun. Mm-hmm. There's other continents that should also be in the sun. But in that picture, apparently that side of the Earth just had North America on it. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, they can't keep none of that right. And then, again, the whole thing of the fact that they lied about all of the lunar missions, I mean, that should totally make everybody not believe anything they say from any moment going forward. If they would lie and hoax all of that, the Apollo 11, hoaxing the shape of the Earth from the window of the lunar module, I mean, come on, they do not deserve any benefit of the doubt. People should not believe anything that they say and question everything. I mean, the fact that they're getting all these billions of dollars every year, they should have to show us what that money is being used for. People should demand that, their budget be stripped from them and that they be given nothing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, they even say they can't go beyond low Earth orbit,
right?
Which is about where the ISS is. I mean, it's not much farther. Mm-hmm. So,
supposedly,
to think they went to the moon back in the 60s, yeah, supposedly. To think they went to the moon back in the 60s, with the computer on board was less powerful than like a cheap calculator.
Right.
There's no way they got through the Van Allen belts that are supposedly up there.
Right. Yeah, no, the astronauts would have been fried. They can't get beyond them now. I mean, it's obvious that all of that is a lie. And then any careful consideration of looking into, the images that were supposedly taken. I mean, just the fact that they have an image of the first man getting out of the lunar module and stepping upon the moon. So they sent the photographer up there to get everything staged before the astronauts come down, and all that is kept. It's just sheer lunacy. I mean, but yeah, so many.
And then left him behind so he could video their craft taking off too.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
watch him fly off into the distance. Which also, I think, I believe it's when Neil Armstrong came down the stairs, you could actually see through him and see the horizon behind him.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
It's just crazy. There's no way they could have got that effect.
Right. The other thing that was very telling to me is the demeanor of the astronauts during the press conference after they supposedly went to the moon, and how they were like, pulling teeth to be there. They did not want to be there, and you could tell that something was not right. Because if I had gone to the moon and I had just achieved the greatest feat known in the history of humankind, I would be just beaming. Yeah, American hero, parades and celebrations, and I'd be telling all the stories of all the cool stuff I saw and experienced, and I just want to talk about. I'd never want to shut up about it, and that was totally not the case.
To be interviewed by everyone.
Right. Yeah,
that's Neil Armstrong kind of hid.
Yep, totally. And then, what he said later, and the fact that he never did another interview about it after that is also telling. But, hey, brother, we've got 3 minutes remaining, so I want to give you a chance to to share, final commentary, whatever you feel is important for the listening audience with regard to your work, why you do what you do, anything that you'd like to speak on.
Okay. I do what I do because I want to expose Satan. I want to expose his lies that I feel that has been revealed to me, and so I'm just trying to reveal it to other people. And I don't sit down and try to make a video every day or anything. It's just whenever something hits me, I feel like God just puts that seed in me to make that video, and so that's what I do. That's why I don't really have anything coming up. Is because I just kind of do it as He puts it in me, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Well, how about your family? I mean, where are they with your wife? Is she knowledgeable on all these things? Are you able to share with family members, or do you, like us, have to congregate with others of like mind the way that we do with our broadcasts?
Yeah. I mean, I would say maybe 2 of my family members, think anything like I do, and everybody else thinks I'm crazy.
Yeah, I guess that's about the average. I think it's the same for me as well. Yeah. Well, hey, brother, we greatly appreciate you.
Nice.
Go ahead, say that again.
I said, and for all I know, those 2 are just being nice.
Right. Yeah, so funny. Yeah, whenever we get together for like family dinners or meals, I'm always confronted about my beliefs, and I'll become the joke of as far as, oh, he believes the earth is flat or whatever, but yeah, well, it's true.
Chris, so, you're pretty close. Are you thinking about going to the conference in November?
In November? Yeah, actually, I am considering it.
Oh, good, because I'm going. I'm going to be selling books. Zen's writing books, and I'm going to sell them.
Yes.
All right.
And praise God, Laurel's going to be joining Kathy. Yeah, which I want to give a shout out to Scott Lombardo too, and thank him for funding the journey for both Laurel and Kathy.
Yay,
know that we
Scott.
Appreciate you so very much, brother, for your willingness to do that and for helping out in that way. And we appreciate all of you, and thank you, and you as well, Chris, for all that you're doing and bringing people to knowledge and waking people up. And it's been a good evening, and we appreciate you and all that you do, and we'll do it again sometime. Yeah.
That sounds good.
All right, your website one more time, your YouTube.
That's just the Potter's Play.
All right. Hey, we appreciate all of you. Thank you again for taking the time to join us and for sharing your evening with you. We hope that you are blessed, and may the Most High watch over all of you. Be good, all.
Amen. Thank you, Chris. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Good night, all. Be blessed.